Right there, folks. Well, thank you guys so much for joining our Thursday public demo. My name is Dana. I am the Learning and Development Manager here with Quantic. Today, we have a special opportunity to see our new 7 Shifts integration right here in the demo. I do have a special guest star, Sam, here, if you want to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Dina. Hey, everyone. My name is Sam, and I'm with 7Shifts, and I'm the business development manager here. Business development on our side means I handle everything to do with our net new integrations, go-to-market strategy. So that's why I'm here today is to talk about the brand new tier one integration we have with Quantic and expressing what 7Shifts does and the value it has within this integration and how we create that all-in-one product together as we go to market together.
Cool. All right. Sam, thanks so much. All right. So for today, we're talking about the integration. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about what data from Quantic actually pushes over to 7 Shifts. And I'll just show you a few little examples, but really the star of the show is going to be Sam today. He's going to walk you through everything that 7 Shifts has to offer and how this integration works and looks. Now, throughout the presentation, you may have questions. So something that you can do is you'll notice inside your Zoom call, there is a little menu called Q&A. If all throughout the process you have any questions, go ahead and type those into that section there that says Q&A, and either we will take care of and answer those questions as we go through the presentation, or we will wait until the very end and review them. With that being said, let me go ahead and start sharing my screen and talk about a few Quantic items. Okay. I know you're on the edge of your seat to wonder what from Quantic is going to go over to 7 Shifts, so let's take a look at that. The first thing is sales information. So all of your sales all throughout the day will end up getting pushed over to 7 Shifts. And what'll be nice about that, as Sam will go into, is you'll be able to use that sales information, compare it to your labor tracking, and then also compare all of that to your projected sales based on your previous sales. Additionally, not only will you have sales information, but you'll also have the ability to have multiple different locations within 7 Shifts, and then pair these accounts, your account, to those different locations. The employees that you create, the roles that you create, those are also all going to get mapped over to 7 Shifts as well. Here you can see I'm actually in the 7 Shifts module in Quantic, and this is where I go to sync employee data. What are my employee names on Quantic? What are they in 7 Shifts? And the same could be said about roles. As your employees are clocking in and clocking out in Quantic the way that they normally would do, that information is actually also going to get pushed over. And so you'll be able to adjust those those time clock entries in Quantic as well as 7 Shifts. So what I mean by that is if let's say I have an employee that forgets to clock out, if I go into Quantic and adjust that, that information will also get adjusted there in 7 Shifts. And the last thing that I'll mention on my side is something called scheduling enforcement. So what this gives you the ability to do is when you're creating your schedules in 7 Shifts, you can make it so that your employees cannot clock in outside of when they're scheduled. And so here in the module, you can see that if I enable this, I can set what's called a grace period. And here I have my grace period set for 15 minutes. Let's say my shift started at 1 o'clock. That would mean I could not clock in any earlier than 12:45. Now, this is an optional feature that you can enable or disable, but you will also, as a manager, have the ability to override that as well in case there's a scenario where that employee does need to clock in a little bit early. So as I mentioned, we've got sales information, time clock information, employees and roles, and then lastly, the ability to set up grace periods. So that's just a little bit about Quantic pushing data over to 7 Shifts. And then what they're going to do is they're going to make magic happen with that data. And as I mentioned, Sam, if you want to go ahead and take it away and talk about what we do with that data.
Dana, can you see my PowerPoint presentation, my slideshow?
Certainly can.
And to confirm, you can still see the slideshow?
Certainly can.
All right, good stuff. All right, everybody. My name is Sam, like I said, and I'm based out of Victoria, British Columbia, Canada, and I run all of our net new partnerships here at 7Shifts. When looking at 7Shifts, what we're going to talk about today is who we are, get a firm understanding of like where the value of 7Shifts really does sit. We'll talk about our payroll and what we're moving through there, our pricing, where we win, and then also some blurbs or some questions you can bring up to your customer base to start to prompt the questions and answers around what they're currently doing with their scheduling, what they're currently doing with their payroll, what those costs look like, and then what the value of this partnership truly is moving forward. So at the end of the day, if you haven't heard about 7 Shifts, we really focus in on labor and retention when it comes down to restaurants. We are 100% restaurant focused, and with that stance, we're able to have a large competitive advantage with restaurants where we are strictly building new features within our platform based off of the recommendations we get from restaurants every single day. So this is a huge, huge plus on 7Shift's side in the restaurant industry because we are focused on the restaurant industry. We are not going into other hospitality forms like retail or hotels. We are only focused on restaurants, and we want to be the best in breed when it comes down to schedule, tips, and payroll for restaurant owner operators. So a snapshot of 7 Shifts. I'm sure if you've heard of 7 Shifts before in the past, a lot of us know us by our scheduling. We automate scheduling, allows it to be easy, seamless, all through a mobile app. The individual or the employee can see their schedules or swap shifts or communicate with the staff member all through the app as well. And they can also see their payroll cycles within their app as well. So that's kind of the bread and butter of 7 Shifts. But as you can see here, we've added multiple different pillars to start to add to how we are that all-in-one system for that employee-centric database. So things like time clocking, we typically see individuals or owners use 7 Shifts time clocking in heavy compliance regions like California, New York, or Philadelphia. And with that, they use Quantic to punch in, obviously, to run their sales, and then they use 7 Shifts to punch in to have the automated compliance where it comes down to when they need to be taking their breaks. If they do not take their break, what meal waivers are they signing? We have break attestation, all that good stuff is automated through the platform. So the manager on shift that's running the staff doesn't need to worry about when somebody's taking their break or have it top of mind throughout the day of, oh, Sam needs to go take his break. The system will automatically notify the individual and the manager to let them know that it is time for that individual's break. Looking it over into tip management. Tip management is two different products, all within one tip management solution, and that is our tip pooling and our tip payouts. So you're actually able to pay out the tips directly to somebody's bank account, or you can automatically do a tip pool. So if you're going based off of seniority, based off of hours worked, based off of a point system or a weighted system, you can set that up automatically in our system. We pull that data in from Quantic, and then we will then push that automatically over into your payroll, whether it be 7 Shifts payroll or a third-party payroll. And then the next bucket is our payroll system. It is our main focus of this year, next year, and beyond. We do believe that there was a massive gap that I'll get into of the restaurant industry and how payroll is done. Yes, there's a lot of payroll companies out there. They are very robust and they're able to do complex situations, but majority of the restaurant industry is that 1 to 5 locations. And do they need a robust system? Not necessarily. They want something that is easy to use, that is tech friendly, user friendly, and they can run payroll in minutes versus hours and days. And then the last piece is our team engagement. This section is we're able to engage staff a little bit more through our app and through our staff communication, where we're actually able to retain staff about 13% longer within the restaurant industry. So the key benefits, restaurant or 7 Shifts is not a generator, but what we do is we save time and money. And how we do that is through scheduling and through our system, we're able to save about 79 hours per month on how we're able to automate what that schedule looks like and how it updates, how shift swaps, time off requests, shift pools are all done. And then once those are accepted, then the schedule automatically updates, the hours are accurate, the time clocking is accurate, and then that way everything that's pushing to payroll is accurate. So there's no manual entries when you're working with Quantic and 7 Shifts. When it comes down to where we see the most value in 7 Shifts is it is that labor percentage, that labor cost that you're seeing. Outside of cost of goods in restaurants, labor is the number one topic that everyone is talking about. How do we lower our labor costs with a rising minimum wage? And we typically see about a $2,100 savings per month when individuals use our systems to their advantage based off of their projected and actual sales. What are we projecting for labor costs, and then what is that labor percentage going to be? So we are producing data for these individuals to be able to take action on and make decisions based off of the data that we're providing. And it's no longer that gut check of, oh, I always cut my first servers at 7 p.m. Well, if business isn't booming that day, or if it's not going well that day, you should probably be cutting your server or your first server at maybe 5 p.m. And you start to save those hour by hour costs throughout the day. And then that ultimately lowers your labor percentage, which gets that restaurant from like that 5% margin to that 10% margin, or from that 10% margin to that 15% margin, putting money back into that owner operator's pocket. I've already touched on the retention models. We reduce turnover by about, or sorry, increase the turnover when it comes down to, or reduce turnover about 13%. And we're able to do this by our engagement section. So individuals are able to go and rate a shift. If it's a 5 out of 5 shift, they're able to then say, hey, we were well staffed, I crushed it in my tips, and I'm a happy camper. If it's a 3 out of 5 shift, they could give feedback saying, we were short staffed, nothing to do with the management because 3 people called in sick at the last minute. I was a little bit slammed. It would have been nice to have more hands, but I ended up getting some tips, more tips on the side of that. So it is a communication tool, a training tool that the staff is able to communicate to the manager or to the owner to give them that feedback so they're able to then take that feedback into action and create that culture that they want within that restaurant. And then the last piece is we help reduce up to 50% of staff communication. So what this looks like is you typically get hired at a restaurant and you have a iMessage group chat or a WhatsApp group chat. You have one for front of house, back of house, bartenders, servers, and it's scattered all around. You're able to do that all within 7 Shifts, and you're able to schedule. You can say message everyone that's scheduled today or message everyone that's scheduled tomorrow, and it automatically pulls in from the schedule to send that message out. So we reduce that staff communication, and then also for privacy purposes, you don't have to share your personal cell phone number with 50 strangers you just met. You're able to just communicate through the app where the app is monitored. If there is any foul play or bad messages that are going through, that those messages are monitored. So then we can take those and use those as supporting factors of that complaint. Looking at the 7 Shifts and Quantic integration, this integration, like Daniel was speaking of, we take in the sales and the time clocking data. We can map your employees so it's nice and easy to get onboarded, and then the tips data. So as you can see on the tip side of things, this is coming soon. The way our integrations typically work is we launch with sales, labor, and employee data. That gives us enough data to automatically send credit card tips to payroll. So if I'm doing a sale and I get a $50 credit card tip, that $50 will automatically push to Sam McMullen's payroll, and I'll get paid out that amount on my payroll. What is coming soon is our automated tip pooling. And this usually comes live. There's no more dev work needed. All the dev work is done. But this comes live once we see that when people swap shifts, when they ask for time off, when the schedule's swapped around, and we see that everything is doing things accurately, we are then going to turn on tip pooling for the owner operators to be able to use with this integration. So we typically see a 2 payroll cycle with our beta customers currently today. Once we see that data is accurate, we flip a switch, we turn on tip pooling, and then that integration is fully launched, fully live, and you're able to use all areas of the integration once that is live. Looking at into payroll, and like I was talking about earlier, is There was a big gap when it came down to how easy payroll was. If you were to onboard with a payroll company today, can I run payroll within the once I'm live, can I run payroll that week? Will I understand how to run payroll within that week? And then is it easy for me? Do I need to download a CSV file or an Excel file? Do I need to go line by line when it comes down to my tips? How do I make sure that if I'm in those compliance regions like California, that I am being taxed or my employees are being taxed properly? This is all areas that we wanted to focus on and make it as easy as possible. So when you do run payroll, you're able to send those time cards that we get in from Quantic and push it directly into our payroll, and you press run payroll, and you're good to go. So there's no more downloading line by line, manual, human error. It is all automated through the integration, which bodes well for how much time you're saving every single payroll cycle. If it's bi-monthly, you're saving a lot of hours every single month on what that looks like, and you're reducing those errors that you have just naturally if you're tired or looking at line by line and getting a little cross-eyed. What that flow looks like is you have your schedule within 7 shifts. We pull in that time clocking data. The tips data is automatically synced, and based off of your tip pooling, once that is live, that will then all get pushed over into our payroll, and then you can run that payroll, and it breaks it down of how many of the tips, taxes, and costs you have per payroll cycle. So the key benefits when we look at how this looks like within 7 shifts is we do have the automatic tip deductions. Our implementation and onboarding is free. That is definitely a competitive advantage when it comes down to 7 shifts. A lot of these payroll providers, they do have an implementation fee and they do have an onboarding fee. We have a white glove service. Our payroll onboarding team is with your customers throughout the whole process, and they help them run their first payroll cycle side by side to making sure that they understand how things work. Every employee is getting paid what they're supposed to be getting paid, and every employee is populating the way that they're supposed to be populating. So we do have that as a massive competitive advantage when it comes down to how we're able to onboard these individuals with no cost. Obviously, we do have reliable support, and it is a 24/7 channel where they're able to just ask help. It goes into our support team, and they respond very, very quickly when it comes down to questions we have around scheduling tips or payroll or anything to do with 7 shifts under 7 shifts umbrella. We do not charge for off-cycle pay runs. So we have a $6 per employee charge when it comes down to payroll runs, but we do not charge of off-cycle payroll runs within 7 shifts. So you're able to do as many payroll runs as you see fit. And with it being a single source of truth, most of our competitors aren't able to see their payroll cycles within their mobile app. Our employees and the employees within the restaurants that use 7 shifts are able to see their payroll cycle and what they're getting paid within the mobile app, so they never have to log in through a desktop as well. Looking into our pricing packages, these are very, very flexible, and they're meant to be flexible because restaurants, even though they could be all one location, they all operate in a completely different way, or they might have more employees, or they might be more focused on the compliance and the data versus just the scheduling. So think of our essentials package as somebody that is doing a pen and paper schedule, or they're doing it very manually. This is the essentials package is for the individuals that are looking to just, I want to automate my scheduling. I want to get my scheduling onto a technology where it is automated and I don't need to be in a group message every single time somebody asks for a time off request. That's our essentials package for under 30 employees. When we go into our pro package, it is essentially the same thing, but you have unlimited employees, and it also unlocks our compliance features and a little bit more of that data. So if you are a more data centric owner, then and you want to run against our optimal labor tool and our budgeting tool, then this is the plan for you, and you want to be a little bit more granular in what that looks like. Then when we look at our premium package, I think this is going to turn into our most popular package strictly because this is a all-in-one, everything 7 Shifts has to offer into one package for $150 a month. Now, when you look at that price point, we did a pricing refresh in July 1st. And if you're before July 1st, if you're to do this package, it would have cost you about $275 a month to do everything in 7 shifts. Where we see value in this package is the individuals are probably paying 100, 150, $200 a month on their payroll already with a third-party payroll provider, and then to connect to a Quantic, they would have to use 7 Shifts to connect that data breach, which would be that $50 or $80 a month on top of that. So now they're looking at that $250, $300 a month, where you can get everything of scheduling, tips, payroll, all working seamlessly, all for $150 a month. So this package is priced very aggressively. It is meant to be a very aggressive package, but it also gives that flexibility to that owner operator to be able to have all of these different tools into one system and also lower their cost of what their whole tech stack is costing them throughout the process. We do have add-ons, so say if they do not go with that premium, you're able to add on or subtract any of these add-ons month by month. We do not have any contracts. We don't have any 3-year commitments. It is month by month. If they are a restaurant that kills it during the summertime, but then downsizes during the wintertime, they're able to move from essentials to a pro package. They're able to add on manager logbook or task management through those busy times and then remove them going into those winter months where they are a little bit less staffed. So you're able to add and delete these packages. You're able to move around our packages, which makes it very, very flexible for that end user to create the bundle that best fits their scenario. So looking at how to like what to say next, how to bring up 7 Shifts, looking at what the Quantic and 7 Shifts integration looks like. Really, it is talking about saving time, it's affordable, and the value of Quantic and 7 Shifts together. You are combating against those all-in-one systems in the world where we have that POS, we have scheduling, we have tips, and we have payroll. And with our tier one integration, it acts stronger than a lot of these all-in-one systems that were claimed that they're an all-in-one system because of merger and acquisition. They are under the same logo, but are they operating like a tier one integration would? Some are, some aren't. So that's a huge, huge value when it comes down to this partnership is when they go on board with Quantic and 7 Shifts, you are truly getting that all-in-one experience once everything is live and everything is connected. So, what are some things or what are some questions you can do to bring us up? Really focusing on labor. Whenever I'm at shows, I always ask, do you know what your labor percentage is? It is a common question, and a lot of people don't know that answer. And that is an answer that they should know off the top of their head. It should be something that they're tracking every single minute of every single day. They should have that number dialed in. And if they don't know that, that's a prime example of how to bring up 7 Shifts and understand what that looks like for them. Tips is the next one. Are they doing manual tips? Are they taking things from the POS, downloading an Excel file, and then putting it into manual formula where they're analyzing what that payout would look like, and then how much time is being spent on there. A question that I always like to ask is if you were to pay yourself out hourly, what would that cost be, and how many hours are you spending on this task? And that really opens up a lot of people's eyes of I'm wasting a lot of time, a lot of money just to do this little task that data can take care of it and systems can take care of that for them. So here's a few. I'm not going to read through all of them. I'll share this deck afterwards, but this is just a few things that they can do or you can do to bring us up and to start that conversation of understanding what that value is between Quantic and 7 Shifts for that end user. And then the next one is how to talk about us. So th anything around like struggling with the rising costs, loss of staff turnover, payroll, manual errors going through payroll. You're wasting money on overtime. How are you able to track through multiple different apps? Like these are things that are common questions, common scenarios, common things that we get asked every single time we're at food shows or in live events. So here's just some more snippets of different scenarios that we're seeing from our side that can help you out for bringing up 7 Shifts in the future. So all Quantic referrals get a 2 months at 50% off. Again, we don't have any contracts. There's no setup fees, and this is all for net new customers to 7 Shifts moving forward. So that is the presentation itself. I will stop there if there's any questions before I go into a brief demo. Dana, is there any questions?
Yeah, it looks like Tom has a question, which is how are quarterly returns and year-end W-2s handled?
For sure. So when it comes down to, I'll show you here. So quarterly returns are you talking about quarterly returns on sales, Tom, or quarterly returns like on the payroll side of things?
And Tom, you can chat your response, or I give you the ability to talk as well.
And then Dina, the second part of the question for the W-2, what was the second part of that question?
So Tom mentioned federal and state payroll returns, but the original question was, how are quarterly returns and year-end W-2s handled?
So we handle all of those for the end user. So we do all the filing and tax filing for the customers when it comes down to the tax forms. As for the quarterly returns, I'll need to check with our payroll team and our support team on exactly how to answer that question, Tom. So what I'll do is I'll reach back out to Dana and then he can share with that answer for you right after this call if that works.
Great. Any other questions before Sam moves on to the next part?
Good to go?
All right. All right. If you do have any other questions, go ahead and pop those into the chat. Like I said, we will take care of them as we go. Thank you so much.
And then Dana, you can see the 7Shifts app here.
I certainly can.
Good stuff. Okay. So, as Dana was mentioning, when it comes down to what we're bringing in from Quantic, this is your 7 shifts dashboard. So all this stuff that we see here for sales, that's coming in from the integration, and our labor costs as well. That's within 7 shifts, and then you have your labor percentage. When you scroll over what's happening within each of these days, it breaks it down to actual and projected, and then it goes into sales per labor hour and items per labor hour. Some people love getting really granular. Some people don't. They just want to understand what their actuals are versus what their projected is, and then what their labor percentage is. So it's really their prerogative of how they want to use this data. But we do pull in that data so that it gives them as much information as possible to make those decisions. If you have a multi-location, you're able to have a location overview. And what this does is if you're running three locations, you can start to see like, okay, if one is killing it within the labor percentage and their actual versus projected, their variance is always in the green. You can use that as a training, like, hey, get that manager on a call with the other managers and they can train the other two managers of this is what I do every single day and this is how I'm keeping on track just to make sure that your locations are all being successful every single day, every single month and year. When we scroll down in your dashboard, you have your pending requests. So this is anything to do with shift pooling and time off requests, and then your activity log as well. Diving into our schedule portion itself, like I mentioned, we have integrations with the weather. So we integrate with the weather where if you do have a massive patio or if you are someone that has more traffic because you're in a touristy town or more traffic because it's sunny out, we do have the weather coming in. So it gives you a good snapshot of what to expect that day. You're able to put in any events at the top here. So if you have a live band coming in on a Friday, you know you need to schedule a little bit more staff. That is all tracked. Or if it's just like a specific happy hour or you're doing some type of a partnership or promotion, you can have those events at the top. So then your staff knows what to expect coming into that shift. When it comes down to scheduling itself, if this schedule is something that you really like, you can just go up to here and you can save it as a template. If you're doing the same schedule majority of the time with a few different tweaks, you save it as a template. You can copy and paste it up to 3 weeks. And then at the end of that 3 weeks, you can just input the template there. And then you just switch around a few employees. And then that way it saves a ton of time of going in one by one, employee by employee. As you can see here, we track the hours and the total dollars earned within the individual itself. And if I were to do this, it automatically gives you overtime flags and it makes sure that when you're scheduling, it does alert you that you will be going to overtime. I would recommend not doing that. At the top here, you can see you can have multiple different conflicts, and it will show you where those conflicts are within your scheduling. We have partial time off flags. So if you have students that can't work in the afternoon because they go to school in the afternoon, they have partial time off. And then you also have not available, which means they have already requested that time off and it has been approved. So it allows you not to schedule employees when they actually have that time off. I went through that a lot of times when I was working in restaurants. It was pen and paper. You texted the manager, they say, "Hey, I requested time off," and then all of a sudden you see yourself on that schedule that week. Not necessarily the best flow. When we go into the optimal labor tool, this is a day-by-day tracker of scheduled labor, optimal labor, and projected sales. So if we were to go in and view the day, as we get more and more information into the system, this will actually start to tell you which individual roles are overstaffed and where you can start to shrink that labor percentage. So as you can see here, dishwasher is overstaffed from 9 to 10. Maybe you shrink that by an hour. Manager's overstaffed. It will start to say like front of house is overstaffed, servers overstaffed. This allows the manager that's managing the schedule and the employees that day to come in here and start to understand based off of our sales what does this look like? And should I be cutting employees a little bit quicker than I usually do based off of the sales that we're getting in today? As we look through our budgeting tool, all of this is populated through the integration itself. So we pull this information in of your projected and your actuals, and then what that labor target is. So you can set this labor target, and then when you're building out your schedule, you have a projected of 23, but your actual is 19. So that means you're underneath of, yeah, projected labor target. Whereas over here, if you're making a schedule and it shows that, yeah, you're at 20%, you either keep that schedule and know you need to cut 2 or 3 employees to get down to that 18%, or you update that schedule before you post it, getting to that 18% labor target so you can remain on target for that day and for that week. When we look at comparing to actuals, you can compare it to last week, last year, or you can compare it to a custom date. So if you want to compare to August 20th to August 24th of last year and what the sales look like, or if you want to compare, if you have always do a July 4th event and you want to compare against what that looks like, you can compare against that specific day so you know how to schedule and what those projections look like. But those projections will also automatically come in for those days as well. The way that we're able to do this is we have a short-term, a mid-term, and a long-term algorithm that is a learning system that once we have about 10 weeks of data in, our projections are 95% accurate. So when we do see a projection, the restaurant is able to have confidence that that's what they're going to expect that day based off of all the other data that we're bringing in. And obviously, just like any data set, the more data we get, the better it is, the more accurate it is moving forward for those owner operators to use this data for their advantage. When we go into our time clocking, this is one that will come in through Quantic if they're using the clock in and clock out through Quantic. And when you can review here, my Wi-Fi. There we go. This is what it looks like to review the wages, the shifts, the regular hours, holiday hours, all that good stuff comes into here. You review, everything looks good. I'm just going to reopen this pay period so you can see what this looks like. Everything looks good here. Then I close that pay period. I can either export it if they're using a third-party payroll system. I can either export that or I can go down into payroll. I can see that it came in through here. I can go to run payroll, and then this is where you start to run payroll. So that time clocking automatically gets pushed into our payroll. You look through, you review the hours earned. Everything looks good here. You review the time off of every single individual. Looks good there. You preview your payroll. And this at the top here has an overview of what you're paying out, what the total cost is. You can look down here if it's a paper check. or direct deposit, and then you can press submit payroll, and then now your payroll is now done. So that's how easy it is when it comes down to the data that we're bringing in from Quantic, how we then ingest that data and then push it into our payroll. So it is really in 3 clicks versus exporting and going line by line. Now I'll stop there because that's kind of where the focus is today. We do have our task management and our manager logbook, and our staff communication and notifications are up here. But I'll stop there if there's any questions, and if anyone wants to dive into a specific section within 7 shifts.
All right, Sam. I do have a few questions in the Q&A section. We're going to start with Peggy. Peggy says, is there an app for managers or employees to communicate about switching shifts?
So that app is our 7 Shifts mobile app. The managers app within your company sites, you'll have like admins, managers, and the good thing about that is that will determine what you see on the app. So your managers app, you'll see this dashboard, the pending request, and activity log. As for the individuals, they will only see the shifts that they're scheduled today. And then when you look at the staff communication, this is all through the app as well. And this is how they can request or message people to do time off requests. But when we look at our time off, this is also within the app as well. So they're able to ask for time off through the app. They're able to put a shift up for grabs through the app. They're able to ask or accept a shift through the app. And then it all comes back into the admin side or the manager side to approve or deny that request. You're able to turn on automatic approvals. Some do, most don't, strictly because you might have a tier one server swapping a shift with a server that just got onboarded, and you maybe don't want to accept that shift swap. So we do always say or recommend to always have a manager's approval, but that is all done through the mobile app, and it's all the same app. There's no separate app to do that.
All right, thanks so much. Another question from Sebastian. If a day off is requested and it's approved, does it automatically update the schedule?
Correct. So the time off automatically updates the schedule. And then also, if there are shift swaps that are happening, that will automatically update in the schedule as well. So then that way your schedule enforcement is accurate. So if they're punching in, it'll automatically update it where that individual is now working that day. And like Dana was talking about at the start, there is that schedule enforcement. So it automatically updates so then they can clock in for their shift. And then it'll automatically update their hours worked or hours expected for that week as well. So everything's updated automatically when it comes down to time off requests, shift swaps, trades, all that good stuff.
All right. Tom has a question. Is there a way to mark certain days as holidays which trigger as premium pay rate?
Ooh, premium pay rate. I'll check out on the premium pay rate. There are ways to blackout dates as well. So you can black out dates for specific departments for the whole staff. Example is we had a customer that is a brewery and they want to black out the date for all of the workers and the bartenders and the servers, but they didn't want to black out the date for the brewmasters because they didn't really need to be on shift that day and they can definitely go for time off. So you're able to customize what that looks like. As for specific or upgraded pay rates, I'm going to have to check with our product team of what that looks like, if it's the same section or if it is a different section where you can then increase that pay rate for that holiday pay. I'm assuming it's the same one, but I'll double check with that, Tom.
All right. And then the last question I have in the list right now is from Justine. And this, I think I can answer this, or we both can. Can a merchant already using 7 Shifts transfer their information if switching to Quantic POS, or will they need a new account? From my side, I don't know of any reason why you would have to create a whole new 7 Shifts account. I would think we would just connect as we normally would, whether it's an old account or a new account, Sam, unless you know anything beyond that.
Correct. Yeah. So if they have if they're an existing 7 Shifts customer, when they go in, when they go and connect the integration, if they're not a customer, it will take you to a page to sign up for 7 Shifts. Um, and then if you are a customer, it'll just take you to your login page. you log in, and then it automatically connects to integration. And then when you do the employee mapping, you have to have your roles and departments filled out in 7Shifts anyways, which is already done because they're an existing 7Shifts customer. So really, it just allows them to skip a couple steps during that setup process because they're already using 7Shifts. So short answer is absolutely, you do not need to add another account for 7Shifts. It will work with their existing account.
All right, sounds good. That is the current pending questions.
Good stuff. Is there anyone else that wants to come off mute or ask another question while we're here?
All right, folks. Uh, Thank you guys so much for joining the call today. Sam, thank you so much for also joining and showing us all about 7 Shifts and this integration that we're really excited for. I know for myself, as someone that has owned restaurants, I see all these great tools that you talk about, and I think it's great. I think it's awesome. Um, I do see a few other questions popping up. Um, Dwayne asks, is there a tip setting demonstration?
Yes, I can definitely do that. Confirming you can see the dashboard again, Dana?
Yep, shift pull requests.
Yes, perfect. Okay. So when it comes down to our tip pooling, this is so you can create as many tip pools as you like when it comes down to your locations. When I go to create a tip pool, you create your, if you have multiple locations, you select your location. I'm gonna go test 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you determine if you want to do daily, weekly, bi-weekly, semi-monthly, or monthly. We can just do daily. And then are they coming automatically in from the POS or are they being entered manually? This scenario would be automatically from the POS. And then you start to go through how these tips are going to be earned and how they're going to be assigned. So say the front of house is the contributors. They are going to be contributing 10% of net sales, total tips, or remaining tips. So we'll go with net sales. And then this undeclared or unassigned receipts, this is going to be total total tips, and this is going to be like cash tips if there's anything that's unassigned when it comes down to that. How are we added to the tip pool? You can select CC tips, auto grats, and declared tips. So you can check or uncheck these boxes while you go through that process. And then how are tips being distributed? This is where it gets into, is it a points base? Is it equal distribution? Is it a percentage? So you can go percentage to the back of house, and they're going to get 100% of that 10% that the servers are contributing. You can add multiple receivers as well. So if you want to specify which each group, if the kitchen staff gets more of the percentage than the bussers and the hosts, then you can add different contributors into there or receivers into there. And then this kind of gives you that high level of how are the tips being added and how are they being contributed, and then how are they being dispersed after that tip pool is created. You save that tip pool. Now, once that tip pool is saved, our system will automatically pull those tips in based off of the data that you put in. So if it's a percentage, it will all just be a percentage over into that receiver's end. If it is a hours worked, we will then track how many hours an individual worked that day, and then that will automatically divvy up the tips to those individuals based off of the hours worked, and then that would then show up on their payroll for that payroll cycle. So I hope that helped out for the tip pooling side of things and answered that question.
All right. And then, in terms of some pending information that we are waiting on, we wanted to look into premium pay rates for holidays. And then I believe the other one had to do with W-2s. Is that correct?
It was the quarterly, it was the W-2s. So we do all the tax filing, so I answered that one. But it was the first section of that question. It was the quarterly returns, I believe.
How are quarterly returns and year-end W-2s handled?
Yeah. So quarterly returns I'll check into, and then the premium pay rates.
Got it. Awesome. All right. Well, as I mentioned, Sam, thank you so much for joining and doing this with us. This public webinar was recorded, so for anyone that would like a recording of it, we can get it sent over to you. As you may have seen, we do these public demos every single month, so stay tuned for the announcement for the one for September. It's crazy to believe that summer is almost over with. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and stick around for a few more minutes in case anyone does have any questions. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day and have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next time.